Hey everybody, Dirili here. Thank you so much for joining me for another episode of Hakuouki Demon of the Fleeting Blossom. We are on Okita Souji's path, and we've done a few of his endings already, but I think we're going for his lesser good ending right now. And my twin brother invited us to go see Kodo with him. You can just sit back, relax, and let me read you a story. Okita's voice snapped me back to reality. Kaoru's smile twisted into the cruel thing I'd seen so many times before. You don't need to answer right away, dear sister. I'm happy to give you time to consider my offer. We'll be waiting for you. By the time you get home, I hope you've made up your mind. Kaoru. I started to speak, but he had already turned to walk away. Even if he hadn't, though, I didn't have an answer. I didn't know what to do. Okita caught my eye and opened his mouth to speak, when his body twisted violently, and he fell to his knees with a pitiful moan. Okita! The fury blood within him was once again pounding at the walls of his sanity. He grabbed at his chest, moaning. Just as we thought, the pain seemed to be worse than before.
Sorry. I know this is a bad time.
No, you don't need to apologize. He hadn't done anything wrong. The pain was incredible, and yet he still thought of me. I felt tears spring to my eyes and quickly brushed them aside. I want to give him blood so bad, but no, we must make him endure it. Why can't I at least give him the medicine? But no. I reached out to Okita to help hold him up. His jaw was clenched tight in pain, but I could see determination burning in his eyes.
I'm not gonna go crazy. I can handle this. You don't need to worry about me.
Okita. The bloodlust was getting worse, and yet Okita still felt he could overcome the madness through sheer force of will. I wanted to believe him, so I did as he asked. I held him through the pain, but did nothing more. After Kaoru had forced me to drink the water of life, I began to suffer the effects of becoming a fury. Even so, my suffering was nothing compared to his. Okita never allowed himself to show weakness, but even he couldn't hide the agony he was feeling. It must have been nearly intolerable. You're going to be all right, aren't you? Oh, how I wanted to believe that. You'll never go crazy, right? I held him tight, praying with all my heart that he would live and stay sane. The night wind had drifted silently through the forest. We'd made good time and reached our destination for the day a little ahead of schedule. Now it was time to rest. Only a little further. We nearly reached my family's former home. Tomorrow we would likely see Kaoru again. I still hadn't decided what my answer would be. I wanted to know how Okita felt, but whether or not to accept Kaoru's offer was something I had to decide on my own.
Come here, Chizuru.
Huh? He smiled and held out his hand. I took it. Before I had a chance to ask where we were going, Okita was already on the move. Oh my! When we stopped, we were standing in a clearing, looking up. I could see the serene beauty of the night sky laid out before me, the silver moon shining down on the treetops.
Well, it was clear today, so I figured it'd be a clear night, too. You seemed kinda down, so I thought this might cheer you up.
The smell of the forest filled the early summer air, and even something as small as stargazing filled me with joy. I do feel better. I felt as if the chains that bound my heart had loosened. My troubles weren't gone, but they were lessened. Okita's brow creased as he looked down at me.
Well, let's talk about it. What do you want to do?
I chose my words carefully. Some of what Kaoru said was true. I know how much he hates the people who destroyed our home, and I understand why he wants to make a kingdom of his own. He lied to us many times before, but when he'd spoken of his dream, I'd felt the truth behind his words. Or he could just be a good actor. Okita listened silently. I haven't forgotten what he did to us. But he is my brother. You can't even really trust that. I mean, he could just happen to look like us, or maybe he has a demon power to shift faces. Brother or not, I wasn't sure if I could ever forgive him, but there was a part of me that understood why he'd done what he'd done. I'd spent most of my life ignorant of the pain of my past, and when the knowledge had finally come, Okita had been there for me. Kaoru had spent his entire life suffering, and he'd had no one. If I'd never met Okita, would I have turned to hate as well? Would I have become like Kaoru? That line that separated our lives was a thin one. Even after all he'd done, I couldn't bring myself to hate him.
Do you want to live with them?
His eyes demanded an answer. I swallowed. I thought maybe I could be happy if I did go with them. As Furies, Okita and I could never live a normal life. Kaoru offered us an alternative. But Kaoru plans to build his nation on corpses. He'll kill anyone who stands in his way. I could never live with that. If Kaoru could just give up on his dream of a kingdom of demons. Okita laughed.
You really think it'd be that easy? He's got his mind set on this kingdom of demons stuff, and you just said he'll kill to see it happen. I'm sure he'd kill you if you had to. You really think he'll let you convince him to just forget about the whole thing?
Well, it depends on how long it's been his dream. To me, it kind of feels like he just came up with that dream after he decided he was done making me feel pain. So if it's a new dream, we could probably convince him. Okita was right. Kaoru's mind was set on building his new kingdom by whatever means necessary. I couldn't condone violence toward that end, however nice the end may be. There could be no compromise between us. I fell silent, and Okita gave me a warm grin.
I wanted to grant your wish.
What?
If you had begged me, I was thinking I'd probably go with you. I wanted to give you what you want, what you really want.
Okita.
Well, that's why I won't accept Kaoru's offer. He plans to murder hundreds of humans to build his kingdom. If you agree to live with him there, that'd make you a monster. Killing people and trying to hide your own pain. Well, that sounds like a fury to me.
My chest tightened.
And what you really want is to be yourself again, right? Not a fury. Or do you want to give up because you're a monster and just spend the rest of your life hiding from the world?
I didn't know what to say. Okita didn't wait for my response.
Well, that kind of life doesn't suit you. Even if you figured you could handle it, I couldn't allow it.
Oh, Okita. I didn't want to be a fury. I just wanted to live in peace. Okita's words had made me realize the truth I'd known all along. I had been ready to give up.
If we can figure out a way to deal with what the water of life has done to us, then we can both be free of the madness.
Yeah, but how are we going to do that? That's the problem. And we kind of need Kodo for that, I think.
You're Chizuru. You're not a monster.
We both dreamt of a cure, and even though we knew how unlikely it was, Okita refused to give up hope.
Yeah, if you really want to give up on that dream.
He took my hand gently. His eyes gazed into mine, and I felt my heart flutter.
Well, then I'll kill you.
His go-to response.
If you give up on life, then I'll take it from you before you forget who you were.
I heard him say that he would kill me so many times before, but never before had it sounded so kind. It was a strange way to show that he cared, but somehow I understood. Okita.
If you don't want to die, you gotta give up on giving up. You need somebody who's gonna be strong for you, and I'm way too stubborn to ever throw in the towel, so...
His voice shook. When he saw the expression on my face, he stopped. I don't want to give up. My body felt hot, and I realized suddenly that tears were rolling down my cheeks. I couldn't give up, no matter how tempting that might seem. A future born of defeat wasn't worth living. I'll stay with you forever. My emotions washed over me in a great wave, and I ran into his arms. As he embraced me, I felt more than heard him whisper in my ear.
Hold on. I'll stay with you. Forever.
He drew closer. I let my eyes fall closed, and with an almost inaudible sigh, he pressed his lips against mine. Our first kiss! Oh! I could feel the slightest trembling in his hands as he held me to him. He cared for me deeply. The feelings that words could never convey were easily understood through the medium of a kiss. What I felt for him, he felt for me. Our hearts and minds were one. The love I had for him was so great, I thought at that moment my heart might burst. I loved Okita. Never again did I want to be apart from him. Even if we spent the rest of our lives together, it would be too short a time. Especially since you're Furies. The field that spread out before us was just as I'd seen in my dream. At last we had arrived at the town of my birth, and waiting for us.
Both of you.
Welcome home, Chizuru.
When we reached the Yukimura house, my father and Kaoru were there to greet us. Well, Chizuru, do you have an answer yet? I nodded.
Kaoru's already told you then. Good. We will build our new kingdom together.
Father. There was something dark in his tone, as if resurrecting the Yukimura clan was only secondary next to the building of an army and killing humans.
Is something wrong, Chizuru? You look pale. You haven't been refusing to drink blood, have you?
What?
You're a Fury now. Unless you drink blood, you'll go mad.
I hadn't heard my father's voice in years, but I recognized his tone easily enough. It was the tone he'd used to scold me when I was a child. There was no nostalgia in his words, though, only madness. Why don't you just kill Okita to drink his blood? His voice was teasing, but...
That's a good idea. We can always make more Furies.
What do you want to do, Chizuru?
He smiled at me, unconcerned.
I don't mind dying for you.
My decision had been made since the night before. Yeah, I'm not stopping at a kiss. You're not getting away with that, little. I promised that I'd never give up. We would break the curse of the Water of Life together. There was nothing so important that I would sacrifice Okita for. He was everything to me.
Chizuru, are you saying...
He looked stunned. Kaoru said nothing, but his eyes told me he already knew what our answer would be. I can't go with you. I spoke with as much conviction as I could muster. Kaoru sighed. So, you'll abandon me? Abandon your home? Abandon the man who raised you? There was a dark hatred behind his eyes, but there was also sadness. This man is worth all that? Okita's just a human. No, he's just a Fury. And sooner or later, the Water of Life will drive him mad. Stop it! You don't get to talk about Okita like that. To me, Okita was irreplaceable. Kaoru had to know how I felt, and yet he was forcing me to say it. Perhaps he was trying to sever whatever attachment he had to me. I love him. I don't hate you, Kaoru, or you, Father, but Okita is... he's more important. I want to be with him. And I don't want an army of Furies. I don't want a kingdom built on the pain of others. Kaoru's eyes narrowed. You don't approve of what we're doing. His voice shook with anger. You'd rather destroy our dreams? I'm only going to give them what they gave me. Is it so wrong for me to want revenge on the monsters who tortured and mistreated me? Learn forgiveness, buddy. If we were to leave and pretend nothing had happened here, then perhaps both Kaoru and I could find the future we wanted. But I couldn't stomach Kaoru's dream. I don't think I can allow the two of you to live happily ever after. We might have been born from the same womb, but Kaoru and I could not share the same dream. I will succeed, even if my dear sister must suffer for it. I know, that's why...
We'll stop you here, by force if we have to. We can't back down now.
In that moment, my family was mine no more. I looked my father in the eye. Please, Father, stop it! He had to understand, an army of Furies could never bring happiness to anyone. How can you say it's all right to hurt innocent people for your revenge? It was true that humans had destroyed the Yukimura family, but there was no justice in extending that crime to all humans. Surely he knew that. You're a doctor. How many lives have you saved?
That's...
My father didn't hate all humans. It was only the rage brought on by the Fury blood within him that had driven him to feel that way. Demons and humans can live together. We don't have to hate each other.
Chizuru, you...
He stood frozen, seemingly appalled by what I said. Oh my god, what an idiot. Kaoru didn't seem to share my father's consternation. What do you think we were trying to do when our family got wiped out? Coexist with humans, maybe? But all you want to do is cause more pain. How can anything good come from that? If Kaoru and my father did indeed build their demon kingdom, countless lives would be destroyed, just as my family's had been. It's all right to make other people suffer as long as you get what you want. You know all about suffering. How can you do that to someone else? People only suffer because they're weak. If they aren't willing to do what it takes to get stronger, then they deserve what they get. Me, on the other hand. His smile was cold. I'm willing to do anything. In his hands was a small vial of dark red liquid. What? He threw his head back, and with a single swallow, the water of life was gone. His body lurched forward, and he clasped a hand to his chest in pain as his hair turned white. Why did you do that? His breath was ragged, but he looked up at me through his bangs and grinned. I need to be stronger. Besides, it was easy to figure out the right dose for a demon. So you gave me the wrong dose? Once I tested it out on you, dear sister. I see. No! He was willing to sacrifice his body, his sanity, for the sake of gaining even greater power? I know Okito's no pushover, so I just had to make sure I was stronger than he is. He drew his sword, with a cruel grinding of metal, the smile still twisting his face.
Sorry, but I can't say I really care what your reasons are.
There was nothing facetious about his tone. His words were simply an honest truth.
I want to spend the rest of my life with her. If I lose, that's not going to be very long, so I can't lose. That's all there is to it.
Okita, I felt the same way. How stupid are you? Kaoru's strength, multiplied many times over by the water of life, slammed strike after strike against Okita's defense. But hopefully Okita's skill and training still trumps him. Okita grunted a little under the power of the assault, but he deflected each blow and drew back to a safe distance, his eyes wary. And what about Kodo and all this? He's going to die soon anyway. Did you know that using all that strength and regeneration shortens your life?
I do. If being a fury makes my life shorter, well, that's all the more reason I can't let you take it.
His voice was calm. At the same instant, Okita and Kaoru leapt for one another, their swords meeting with the ear-shattering clang. Okita moved back a step, and blood dripped to the ground from a fresh wound in his arm. Wasting no time, he parried, and his own blade opened up a wound in Kaoru's body. Back and forth they went, giving their bodies no time to heal. As the battle went on, Kaoru struck again and again, and soon Okita was the more wounded of the two. The ground beneath them was slick with blood. Kaoru, stop! I couldn't stay silent any longer. You're already really powerful! Indeed, had his opponent been anyone other than Okita, he would have killed them almost instantly. Why are you doing this? I knew that if he were to throw down his weapon, Okita would halt his attack. If only Kaoru would back down, then we'd have no more reason to fight. We don't want to hurt you, Kaoru. But we can't let you start a war that will kill innocent people, and we need the cure for the water of life. Shut up. You want to die before your boyfriend? What? His face twisted with rage and hate. Kaoru spun toward me and charged. It happened so suddenly, I didn't have time to move. Okita leapt after him, but he'd been staying out of range of Kaoru's blows, and I knew he'd never reach me in time. Kaoru was nearly on top of me, his sword held high and glinting in the moonlight. Then, there was someone between us. Is it Kodo? Father? Kaoru's sword came down not on me, but on Father. He'd protected me? Get out of my way, old man. He screamed and kicked my father to the ground, wrenching his sword out of the blood-soaked wound. I threw myself to the ground and wrapped my arms around my father. Okita had nearly reached my brother. Kaoru spun around, raising his sword and swinging out at the charging man. But Okita was the better swordsman, and even Kaoru's fury-enhanced demonic strength couldn't save him. Okita's blade found the opening and slid through it, into my brother's chest. Kaoru crumpled to the ground. His eyes were focused on something far off in the distance. He gave a sort of quiet sigh, and then he was gone. Kaoru. I'd known this night would almost certainly end with Kaoru's death, but my heart was heavy just the same. Perhaps I had hoped we might reconcile someday, and then I might have a family again. Now that slim hope was gone forever.
Chizuru.
His voice was faint. I said nothing, but I gripped his hand until my knuckles turned white. The wound Kaoru had so carelessly given him was a mortal one. Even for a demon, no doctor could have saved him.
The pure water of this place can thin the water of life.
What? His voice was fading. I leaned in close. I couldn't afford to miss a word.
Perhaps it could purify it.
I felt tears spring to my eyes. He was standing at death's door, and with his last words he gave us hope.
I made some mistakes, but I hope that in the end, I was able to be a father to you one last time.
Father! Not all bonds of family need blood to make them real. I swallowed my tears. You'll always be my father, my real father. Whatever mistakes he'd made, he was a kind man at heart, and he loved me like a daughter. I'd had my doubts about his actions, but I'd never forgotten the life that we'd had together as I grew up. He smiled at me one last time, and passed away. I prepared myself for his death, or so I'd thought. As I looked down at the body that had once been my father, I felt hollow inside, like some part of me had fled with his spirit. Kaoru had died hating me, his heart twisted by a lifetime of misery. My father's love for me had cost him his life. Even after all they'd done to me, and all the evil they'd meant to do, they had still been my family. That would never change. I sat there biting my lip, and trying desperately not to burst into tears, when suddenly I felt Okita's arms around me. Words simply refused to come, and so I let myself fall into his embrace. It was enough that he was there, warm, kind, and alive. His fingers combed gently through my hair and traced the meandering paths down my back. I leaned my head against him, and when he spoke, I heard his voice rumble through his chest.
That's all right, Chizuru. You can cry.
Okita. His arms held me tight. He loved all of me, even my sadness and loss. To him, there was no weakness or shame. There was only me. Oh, Okita! And suddenly, all the emotions I'd struggled to hold back were there, in all their soul-shattering force. The only people I'd ever called family were dead, and the loss felt as if it might break me in two. But the man I loved most in the world was safe, and he loved me. Tears poured forth, and my body shook with sobs. I'm so glad you're here. But simple words cannot express how much he meant to me. I cried some more. Final chapter. Clean air and pure water. Surrounded by nature, our bodies began to change. We went to sleep when the moon and stars rose in the sky, and woke bathed in morning sun. Though we were still furies, we no longer felt the lust for blood, nor the pain that came with it. The tranquility of nature seemed to have softened us. Still, there were some things that didn't change. We were still ourselves, and his tuberculosis remained, eating away at his body. Nonetheless, we were together, and that was what mattered. Oh, it's a really nice day today. I lifted a hand to shade my eyes, and Souji laughed quietly.
Yeah, it's hard to think of anything better than just lying in the sun together.
Yeah. The sunlight, which had once been a source of great pain for us, now only made us sleepy. As a result, we often spent our days napping outdoors. The warmth of our bodies pressed up against one another made me feel happy and content. I yawned. Souji grinned.
Hey, you can't fall asleep yet. I'm not sleepy.
But I am.
Yeah, I love you.
Huh?
I love you.
He wrapped his arms around me and whispered into my ear. I blushed. Stop teasing me.
Hey, I'm not teasing you. I've loved you for a long time.
He chuckled. Even all the pain and misery we'd suffered hadn't been enough to blunt his impishness. I hoped it never would. I know, I love that personality of his. Jeez. I knew I couldn't resist it, so I gave up and laughed along with him.
What about you?
His eyes looked deep into mine.
I want to hear how you feel.
His mouth twitched up in a mischievous grin. I rolled my eyes and smiled. I love you too, Souji. He gave me a peck on the forehead. Not the forehead!
Thanks, Chizuru.
He threaded his fingers through mine and wrapped them around my hand. His grip was stronger than I'd expected. I turned to look at him. Souji, what is it?
And don't ever forget that I want to make you happy.
His voice was low and honest.
I don't want you to ever be lonely. So just don't...
I didn't want to ever be apart from him, even for a moment. I snuggled up closer to the warmth of his body. Was he anxious? The uncertainty of our future together did make us frightened sometimes. Don't worry. I squeezed his hand back. You make me whole. How many wonderful memories had I made with this man I loved? I'm happy, very happy, and not lonely at all. There was something wistful in his eyes, but it didn't seem to touch his smile. His arms tightened around me.
I love you so much. So you've got to believe this next part. Even if we get separated someday, my heart will always belong to you.
Is he talking about dying? Please don't die on me anytime soon, Souji. He gave me one last smile, then his eyes slid closed. His arms loosened their grip just a bit. Souji? He said nothing. Having finally managed to express what he felt, it seemed the warm sunlight had gotten the best of our consciousness. I thought you said you weren't sleepy. I enjoyed a short giggle at his expense, then leaned closer to whisper into his ear. I feel the same way. A lazy smile stretched across his face, as if he were enjoying an especially pleasant dream. Even if we do end up apart someday, my heart is yours, forever. I wanted to stay like this always, wrapped in his warm embrace, the slow rise and fall of his chest lulling me to sleep. My eyes began to drift closed as I thought of how I wanted to tell him how much I loved him, over and over and over. When we woke up, I told myself sleepily I would have to be sure to do that. He should never have a worry about my feelings for him. Good night, Souji. Sleep well. Please let it end there. Yes! Okay, that's our good ending number 1. I was like, don't go downhill. And it didn't, so it was a happy ending. Although our time together may have still been short. But at least there was no death. Oh, that's actually a perfect time to end the video, I think. Alright, so next video we'll work on one more bad ending, and then we'll work on the best ending. So I'm not sure how long either of those are going to be. I wonder how good his good ending is then. Because this was fairly happy, I mean a little bit bittersweet because our time together was probably short, but I really want to see how good the good ending is. I hope it's good. I'm sure it's not as good as Sanosuke's because apparently nobody's ending as good as his, but still, I hope it's satisfying enough. Alright, well, I hope to see you in the next video, or some of my other ones, and I'd be so grateful for any likes, comments, subscriptions, or shares with your friends to show some support. Thank you so much for joining me, and I wish you all health, happiness, and safety. Dirili signing out. Bye-bye, everybody.